Well, if you believe Axios, AOC may be eyeing the White House. This is quite the development, although, color me not that surprised. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Greetings, friends. Happy Friday. We made it. What a week. We'll get to everything we need to, as per usual. sam@whatsrightshow.com is my email. That's where you can reach me. And I do respond. I am responding as quickly as I can to each and every one of you, and I appreciate the good thoughts, ideas, responses, and even occasional criticism that I receive from you on a daily basis. Much appreciated. At What's Right Sam on X, formerly known as Twitter. Find me there as well. Now, Axios did a piece basically saying AOC is eyeing either the U.S. Senate or the presidency. And they're citing sources that are familiar, people familiar with her operation. They're deliberately leaking this out, is what's going on. I think, well, for one, the Democrats are trying to get old Chuck Schumer's carcass out of the way. Make no mistake about it, Schumer is 74. He is yesterday's news as far as the Democratic Party is concerned. He's not hip. He's not a Democratic socialist, although, well, opinions may differ, but he's not. Remember the polling I cited yesterday. Granted, it was in New York City, but that's the bubble that the New York Democrats are living in. And the polling indicates that Democrats are more excited than ever about socialism, about communism, about extreme leftism. And they view capitalism with the least amount of favorability that they ever have in the history of polling in the United States on the topic. So here we go. AOC Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who is 35 years old. I know what they're talking about. I know some of these Democrat poobahs that are salivating over the thought of a young, attractive, Latina, new, fresh face for the Democratic Party. And it sets up, I'll tell you, it sets up an interesting showdown because I thought that we were being told in no uncertain terms that Gavin Newsom would become the standard bearer for the Democrats in 28. I'm telling you, behind the scenes right now with this story coming out in Axios, I promise you that the usual suspects within the Democratic Party, the super delegates, the Democratic Party apparatchiks, the core control committee of the DNC, are all in full-blown panic. And the panic is centered around their anointed, selected, nobody's been upfront about this, candidate, Gavin Newsom. He is primed, ready to go. They've already decided Newsom is as good as done as the nominee. And along comes this upstart, member of the squad, AOC. And now everybody's quaking in their boots because do not, as I've said many times, I've met her on a couple of occasions, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is not someone to be underestimated. Now, I'm not flattering her opinions or her intellect or anything like that, but she is a really competent campaigner. She thinks quickly on her feet. And when you look at the state of the Democratic Party currently, and you look at the kind of people that are running out there, you can understand why AOC would be attractive. I don't mean physically. I mean just, as a candidate. And this is striking the fear into, obviously, not just Newsom's organization, but also, I think, into the DNC that wants to maintain power and control over this. They never want to see another 2016 type showdown where you have Bernie Sanders or another populist member of the Democratic Party make a run for it, make a legitimate effort to take the nomination away from the anointed, predetermined candidate. So I'm just telling you, you're going to see next week, I promise, you're going to see a number of stories where the mainstream media is citing sources that begin to slam AOC in a way that we have not seen before. Now you're thinking, Sam, we're in the middle of September 2025. 2028 is an eternity away. Gavin Newsom has been campaigning for 2028 for the past 4 years minimum. He has been preparing for this moment. He has been ingratiating himself certainly for the past 3-4 years during the shambolic Biden administration, ingratiating himself with party leadership. Can you imagine if it all just blew up in his face? By the way, AOC, I don't want to throw any fuel on the fire here for the Democrats, but and Robbie, I'm curious if you agree with me on this. I think AOC is a far more genuine, or comes across far more genuine than Gavin Newsom. I think if the electorate is craving authenticity, the play for authenticity, it's gonna come from AOC. Gavin Newsom is so slick, so smarmy, so absolutely fake. And I mean, I'm saying this right here as those of you watching the Samcam can see me gesticulating with my arms. But Newsom, the whole thing with his arms and the weird, hand gestures, and I don't even know. It is all going to be, I think it's going to give people the ick when things begin to legitimately hit up. So anyway, this is going to be interesting. Now, yesterday I said something on the program. I'm not asking for any, kudos for this. I'm just letting you know that when you listen to this program, occasionally you learn something. And I said this yesterday before the news actually broke, because there have been stories now getting into exactly what occurred with Jimmy Kimmel. Jimmy K got the boot from Disney because he intended to go out back the next day and in his monologue doubled down on the lie about Charlie Kirk's assassin. He was going to come back and repeat it, and the bosses at Disney told him, don't do it. Cut it out. Apologize, move on, and do your thing. And Kimmel refused, being the egomaniac that he is. It was Kimmel's doing. It was suicide by cop. He basically told his boss to go shove it where the sun don't shine. Now, I know a little bit about Bob Iger, and whatever your opinions are of Iger and Disney, one thing Iger is not is a guy who's going to take that kind of arrogance from an underling. It's not going to happen. Iger is a hard-nosed boss. So that was what happened. Now, what's the point of this? Remember yesterday I said, as news was breaking that Kimmel was on his way out, that his show had been temporarily taken off air, I said that this may not actually be Trump's doing. We don't know. We know that Trump got up there and said, we ought to look into this. And Carr at the FCC said something similar, like that this wouldn't fly and watch out, for your license. But as far as we know, there was not even a formal letter of any kind, any communication really, aside from some public comments on X, that Disney was under any kind of pressure. I said, hey, it could be very well an internal thing. Like, let's wait and see. Well, voila. That's exactly what happened. And it makes sense, by the way, because it was so sudden. If Disney, look, I don't know. By the way, there's also a side here. You know, the more I study up on it's a labyrinth. The FCC rules, I'll tell you folks, there are layers and layers of rules that control the public airwaves. We are governed here on the What's Right show by some of those same rules. So I'm very familiar with the rules as they relate to the show. Now, one thing you have to remember, there's this exception to the equal time rule on TV. The equal time rule, you got to give both sides time on air. There's a noted exception to it, which is interesting. And the exception has to do with bona fide newscasts, bona fide news interviews, and documentaries. And the basic definition is shows that qualify under that heading are exempt from all the content rules of equal time when that kicks in during elections, are exempt from those rules. Now, would you be interested to learn, and I didn't know this, but would you be interested to learn that these late night shows ask and qualify for that exception? Meaning they put themselves out there legally as being a bona fide news show. So when you have a bona fide news show coming on air, asking for specific relief from existing federal law, promising that they're going to just report the facts, and when they become essentially nothing more than lying liars, Democrat propagandists, well, there actually is a basis for removing them from air, or at least punishing them, going after the license. Now that's I got to take a break, but the level of defeatism that I see on our side, well, we're no better than the Democrats. Give me a break. There was a guy that went to prison for a meme in 2016. He wrote a meme, and the Lib Dem judges put the guy in federal prison over it. You remember this story. So anyway, there's lots of examples, of course, where the left is not practicing what they preach, and it is a lesson for us conservatives. And I'll get more into that here when we come back. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT.
I'm the best.
Personal injury law has been the same for a long time.
The best.
Big egos, greed, and sleazy schemes. We've had enough. Welcome to Sam and Ash, the new standard for personal injury law, where things are done the right way, because you deserve a team that delivers real support and results. When you have both, your whole world can change. Sam and Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right.
Nevada's favorite recovering Californian, Sam Mirejovsky, here behind the What's Right microphone. I need to quickly share something with you that is happening at a fast clip. I'm seeing it everywhere across the 3 social media platforms that I peruse. And that is, I'm seeing posts from many, many people who are finally seeing, for the first time, Charlie Kirk's videos and are realizing that the caricature that they had of Charlie Kirk fed to them by the media was flat out wrong. Here's a gentleman named Eric on X writing, quote, "As a lifelong Democrat, I didn't know what to make of Charlie Kirk. I've since spent several lunch breaks watching his debates, full videos. And I've come away with the impression that we got him all wrong. The reaction from those on my side of the aisle have really made me rethink whether we're on the right side of history. Well, I'm crossing the aisle. I just registered as a Republican. Anyone else?" Now, it's not a bot account. Before you get all on me about this, there are a number of prominent people that follow this guy, including Andrew Gruel, who's over in Huntington Beach, outspoken COVID critic, in Orange County, California. Obviously, Mike Cernovich, and Jesse Waters follow this person. Anyway, so it's not some, crackpot, whatever bot farm putting this stuff out. Plenty of examples. I'm giving you just one of people that are changing their minds. Now, before we I'm gonna get to Kimmel here. Just bear with me. I'm gonna talk about this right now because it's laying heavy on my heart. Last Wednesday, when I heard what happened, and of course, you and I, we were on air together when we got the news that Charlie had passed. Devastating. And the wounds for me and for many of you were made worse. were torn even wider by people who celebrated Charlie's death. Now, this guy Eric gets at this and explains it's one of the reasons he's bailing on the Democratic Party when he says this part about the reactions that he saw from those on his side of the aisle made me rethink whether he writes here, meaning Democrats, are on the right side of history. So we experienced this. You and I, we experienced seeing, hearing, watching these terrible reactions from so many Americans. Some of them were truly vile. Some of them actually, I think, are unforgivable. Now, I may have mentioned earlier in the week that I was wrestling with a friend here in town. I'm gonna talk about this openly because I tweeted this out on my X account, where you can find it at What's Right Sam. By the way, please do follow me there. I frequently put this stuff out, so you'll have it before you even need to listen to it here on the show. But regardless, I put out a statement about James Trees. Trees is an enormously talented chef here in Las Vegas, and my office and his restaurant happen to be on the same block, and he and I are very different people. He's a liberal guy. I'm not. And when I saw that he'd posted some stuff, now not gleeful videos about Charlie Kirk getting murdered, but just, a kind of I'm not going to get into the comments what it was, but it was not nice. And I was absolutely heartsick over it. And what I did is I reached out to him. I picked up my phone, I reached out to him, and I told him he was wrong about Charlie Kirk, like fundamentally that he was wrong. And James heard me out, and he got the same message from others too, and he apologized. And there is this movement, and I understand it. I fully get it among those of us are conservatives, right, that loved Charlie Kirk, to boycott James Trees restaurants. And I gave my thoughts. I'm not going to get into all of it, of why I think this is unproductive. But the two things that I will say is we are allowed grace. We are allowed, as humans, to admit we were wrong. If James didn't admit he was wrong, it would be one thing, but he did. And that's big in my book. And the other thing is, I know many of you listen to this program all over the US and the world. And I love that. I moved to Las Vegas 6 years ago. I love it here. And I deeply admire people, and James is one of them, who have done extraordinary things to bring revival to our city, and particularly to our downtown area. I mean, when James came back to his hometown from California, where he had a spectacular career in a fancy restaurant in the South Bay, he comes back to Vegas and he opens a hole-in-the-wall restaurant in literally a part of town that now is quite nice, but back then was on the outs. And he has done more for the arts district than just about anybody I know to bring it to where it is currently. And in my book, at least, right, that matters to me too. I've watched him be a good person. I've watched him help people. He's been tremendously kind to me. He's a friend. And this is one of the things that we're struggling with, many of us right now in the midst of all this stuff going on, because we feel betrayed by some of our friends, suddenly realize that they've got these opinions and they're just flat wrong. They're ill-informed. But one thing about me is I am a loyal friend, and I don't just write people off, one minute to the next. And so I gave my thoughts. I put it out there. I know I've gotten responses from some of you that disagree, and that's okay. I'm not telling you what to do. I understand if there are people who say, I'm never going to go to James Tree's restaurant ever again. I get it. So anyway, Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Rarely wrong, always right. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Greetings, friends. Welcome to the What's Right show, your place for common sense conservatism, Monday through Friday, 1 to 3 p.m., right here on News Talk 840 KXNT. So remember the meme, the Hillary Clinton meme. Douglas Mackey, known online as Ricky Vaughn, was convicted of conspiring to interfere with voters' rights. He went to prison. He posted a meme that had basically a joking statement that you could vote for Hillary Clinton by texting a number. Now, I remember covering this. Robbie, I remember when this was happening. We were on air. We were doing our show down in LA at the time. And I remember thinking, this is just insanity. Are they really, for honest to goodness, serious, belief, are they actually telling us that there are Democrat voters that are so stupid that they think that they can text their vote somewhere? The answer was yes. Now, I'm not the one that has to sit in prison, so I'm not going to laugh about it and say it's a self-own for the Democrats, but literally, yes. I want every single Democrat crying about Jimmy K, a.k.a. Jimmy Kimmel, losing his job because he didn't listen to his boss when his boss told him to not double down on his insanity. Everybody crying about this is some sort of statist interventionism. The examples of where the Democrats over time have gone with limiting free speech. It's just astounding. And I keep repeating it. Trump was the sitting president of the United States, and they yanked him off of that. He was banned from any cable shows. He was yanked off of Twitter, what is now X, all social media platforms. He was completely banned. And he was banned. You know what the pretense was? The pretense actually was, the reasoning given was that Trump was inciting violence. Remember, now it was, days after, or actually immediate aftermath of January 6th. So we just had Charlie Kirk murdered by a left-wing fanatic, a pro-trans agenda fanatic, really a dangerous person, may have conspired with others. There's still a lot of the story we don't know. But we know what motivated him. It was clear he had these conversations and he admitted to these things in publicly released evidence. So I don't even think at this point the motivation's in any kind of dispute. And this is what makes it so dangerous. What Kimmel did to a wide audience, flat out lying. And we as Republicans need to stop taking this stuff laying down. It boggles the mind how unbelievably defeatist we are. And I call myself, I have always been a free speech absolutist. But I also recognize that there is a time and place to crack the whip. And none of these people that are criticizing this on the left have a shred of credibility. Let me just bring up, this is a good example of this. Governor Walz from Minnesota, little Timmy, he's running for re-election, by the way, so he's looking to be a second term in office in the governor's mansion. So him and the insufferable wife will presumably stay in the public eye. Timmy has, well, he's come out and been quite firm about this, making the rounds on the cable networks about how Trump and his administration is throttling free speech.
This is it. If you ever wondered how democracy dies, you're witnessing it. And I know people are watching a football game tonight and we're kind of sleepwalk through this thing, but
don't remind them. We got him here.
One of the most outrageous affronts. Yeah, well, right. That's one of the most outrageous affronts on this. This is North Korea style stuff. And it's being done because this is a weak, thin-skinned man who's failing as a president. All of the things he promised are not happening. And this is exactly what dictators do.
What? Thin-skinned president? Look, Kimmel got up and lied about who the shooter was. And this matters because we need to have a national reckoning about political violence. And we need to stop the lies. There was an Economist piece that just came out where they showed this graph. Nobody reads anymore, so they're looking at the pictorial of this, and it shows, there's like unknown violence, and there's blue for Democrat liberal violence, and red for, of course, us. And the chart, God, if you look at that chart, it's just blowing up in red, meaning they actually are presenting in The Economist a quote-unquote serious publication, guffaw. But anyway, they presented this, that it's right-wing violence that's taking over. Now, when you take a peek under the hood, you realize that it's literally an Antifa professor who is the source in the article. And this guy, I guess Posobiec is reporting on this. He apparently participated in an attack on Trump's first inauguration. And so Jack Posobiec's right. All they do is lie. This is just what we have. So we have to start fighting back, or their narrative becomes the truth. Let me tell you this as a student of communist regimes. They repeat the lie over and over and over again until it becomes true. And so moving back to our friend little Tim, Tiny Tim Walz of Minnesota, here's Tim Walz. Let's see, when was this? I want to make sure I'm not misleading you on this. Tim Walz, yesterday on MSNBC, of course, calling what Kimmel's cancellation North Korea style stuff back in December of 22. Well, he said something very different, and let's hear.
I think we need to push back on this. There's no guarantee to free speech on misinformation or hate speech, and especially around our democracy.
So that's also not true. Right? Here's my fundamental, I'll say, my fundamental problem is that we started with a lie from Kimmel. The lie was the shooter was MAGA. Kimmel then gets reamed by his boss and says to his boss, who is Iger, Bob Iger of Disney, I'm still going to do it. And guess what? Tomorrow I'm going to double down. And so Iger goes, you know what? I need you to take a vacation. I'll see you later. And then the media doubles down on it and creates another lie, which I forecasted somewhat yesterday on the program, which is to say that Trump exercised his fascist powers to have Kimmel removed. So we're taking a lie, Kimmel's original lie, and doubling down on it with more lies. And it's a full-time job just retorting all of this insanity. This is what we do, of course. I signed up for this, folks, here for the heavy lift, but still, let me just say, the Democrats, all of them now screaming about how this is all so deeply unfair. Here's a lovely supercut of some of our favorite Democrat voices, all saying something quite different once upon a time about free speech and free expression.
You shouldn't be banned from one platform and not others for providing misinformation out there.
There's no guarantee to free speech on misinformation or hate speech, and especially around our democracy.
There are Americans who are engaged in this kind of propaganda, and whether they should be civilly or even in some cases criminally charged is something that would be a better deterrent.
If people go to only one source and the source they go to is sick and, has an agenda and they're putting out disinformation, our First Amendment stands as a major block. It's really hard to govern today.
This is a matter of corporate responsibility. Twitter should be held accountable and shut down that site. It is a matter of safety and corporate accountability.
The First Amendment is not absolute. It does not protect any single thing anyone says. And there are limits, and that's important. And what this committee has been trying to do for the last year and a half is to chill the federal government from monitoring what is going on social media.
When you look at what Tucker Carlson and some of these
future
other
presidents
do, it is very, very clearly incitement of violence. Very clearly incitement of violence. I believe that when it comes to broadcast television, like Fox News, these are subject to federal law, federal regulation in terms of what's allowed on air and what isn't.
So my biggest concern is that your view has the First Amendment hamstringing the government in significant ways.
That last one was Ketanji Brown Jackson, the affirmative action hire over at the Supreme Court of the United States. Now, just before her AOC, sorry, I couldn't contain myself over here, folks. Got a little excited. The Kofif running through my veins. I'm also, by the way, thankfully getting past my jet lag. So I don't know if you can sense my pep. AOC said, that's why I can't wait for her to run for president. She is so dumb. My God. Fox News is on broadcast television, public television. Fox News is on cable. Cable. But ABC, Disney ABC, is actually on the public airwaves. So everybody now coming around and defending free speech and everything. I mean, these people are just listless. There's no there. There's no founding principles. And remember, I came out with strong criticism earlier this week of Pam Bondi. So I don't think that I'm like turning this all around. I'm just saying we got to fight these people tooth and nail and got to be purposeful about it. Sam Mirejovsky here on the What's Right Radio Network. There are a handful of Democrats who have come around, who have seen the light, who are starting to speak reason. I'm not just talking about Fetterman here. Fetterman is, I'm telling you, he, a lot of the time is saying the right stuff. He still votes with the Democrats, so you can't celebrate the guy too much. But in some cases with the Democrats, it turns out you can reverse a lobotomy. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Chris Cuomo, brother of Andy Cuomo, now running for mayor, former governor, once upon a time an insufferable lib who himself lost his show on CNN, is now on Newsmax. And Cuomo dropped this last night, which is a somewhat refreshing breath of common sense reflection.
You can like or not like Disney's decision on Kimmel. But until I see proof of actual government coercion of their decision, this is about Disney making a business decision about its brand and the responsibility it has to respect the desires of its audience and its license. Okay? Yes, Trump said Kimmel would be next. Now, is that correlation or is it causation? The answer to that comes in proof. I don't care how you feel about it. All right, that doesn't do anything for me. We don't have the proof before us. Maybe we will. Then I'll change my analysis. What we do know is that the outrage at ABC Disney for what he said was more impressive to them than his ratings, apparently. Now, you can argue if they made the right choice, but they had the right to make that choice.
Yes. Yes. And so this is what reporting sounds like real reporting. And this is what you expect from a news program. Here are the facts. Right now, it seems, based on the available information, and this was last night, there was some fog of war yesterday during the day. Of course, I saw through it, being your beacon and shining light, but nonetheless, I saw through it. There was some fog of war, who did what caused what, but it turns out that, as we best know, based on Disney's own statement, that they made this choice themselves. So taking a lie and doubling down on it with more lies just puts the Democrat media machine further in the digs the media machine further in the hole. But that's what they do. Okay, so, well, this is this morning. Julie Roginski calls on CNN, calling all this available information out there. Listen how she's describing it and how diametrically opposite it is to what was being described by Chris Cuomo.
I'm a free speech absolutist, so I think Jimmy Kimmel should be able to say whatever he wants to say, and the market can decide whether it wants Jimmy Kimmel to say it or not. In other words, if Jimmy Kimmel's ratings are awful, then Disney has every right to cancel him, but that's not why they got rid of him. They got rid of him because Donald Trump made it clear he doesn't like to be made fun of, as he said consistently, both before and after this. Look, I'll just caution my friends on the right who are gloating over this. It's a round world, my friends, and if you think this is how you're going to proceed, one day there's going to be a Democrat who's going to put somebody in charge of the FCC, and that person is going to make a call to Lachlan Murdoch, and he's going to say, hey, if you want your station groups to have any kind of access to Fox on broadcast, maybe get rid of Greg Gutfeld over on Fox News. Let's get ready for retribution after retribution after retribution, because this is a Pandora's box you're opening up that you don't want to open up.
Oh, Julie Roginski, by the way, described as a Democratic strategist. Republicans, you don't want to open the Pandora's box of free speech hell. I would caution my Republican friends on the other side of the aisle that it's a round world, that what goes around comes around. Huh? I'm old enough to remember sitting around during COVID, and if you wrote on Twitter, you had any amount of following, any kind of following on social media, and you wrote on Twitter, for example, I believe that the virus started in Wuhan, China, it would be flagged, and it would be literally human beings inside the Biden administration, inside the executive office building across the street from the White House, that would submit individual posts, would flag individual posts and send them to Twitter, to Facebook, to Google, YouTube, whatever, send them for those accounts, those posts to be taken down, and maybe those people to be deplatformed. And guess what? To my great chagrin, if we're going to talk about the law, hello, lawyer here. To my great chagrin, Berenson's case went up to the Supreme Court. They punted on it. They threw it out. They said, well, the government can do it. Okay. All right. So I happen to think that is a terrible decision, because that is literally the government telling a private entity that it has opened itself up for public discourse and has thus become a public square. And I could tell you more, I could get into details of the case law behind this, but there's case law that says even private property, if open to the public, has to ensure some amount of free speech activity. And you had the government saying, we will F you up I've seen the emails. The Biden people are writing, we're going to make your life. If you, Zuckerberg, if you don't take this down, Facebook, Instagram, you don't take this down, we are going to unleash the powers of regulatory hell on you. And they all crapped their pants in unison. It's a giant tech diaper blowout. They're like, oh, okay, we'll take it down. And these same people are now basically arguing with us about free speech absolutism and I'm a free speech absolutist. Yeah, I'm starting to think, folks, honestly, that Trump is a magician. I think he's a magician. He somehow has gotten now the Democrats to come out in unison for free speech. And it's part of a pattern of the pattern is that, that Trump basically gets these people so wigged out and gets them to change their positions back and forth just to get at him that it makes them look ridiculous. So this to me, and it matters. All of this matters, and we'll get to it here at the top of the hour. It matters because the issue of violence, of political violence, is a story that needs to be told accurately. And the left is lying about it because they know that great shame and responsibility for violence, political violence now rests on them. Top of the hour, Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT, back in a jiff. Making radio great again. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Friends, good to be with you. Happy Friday. Hope you have a good weekend coming up, those of you not working. And if you're working, I hope it's pleasant. I hope everybody treats you right. And I hope you still get to do something kind of nice. We had a lot of rain here last night. And then I got up this morning and fall was here. And I'm mad about it. I'm a summer guy. I like the heat. This was the first time I went out on my patio here in Vegas in the morning. The best thing about summers in Vegas, you get up and you can go outside early in the morning and it's warm. So you can have your coffee outside, be there in a t-shirt and shorts, and it's warm. Anyway, today I got up and it was cold, and I thought, dang it. Just like that, it's gone. Sam at what'srightshow.com. Sam at what'srightshow.com. That is my email, at what'srightsam on X, formerly known as Twitter. Follow me there. You don't need to pay any money to be on X. But every real human, particularly those of you who are conservative, are like-minded, that go on this platform and sign up and open up a free account, helps support free speech dialogue. And if we're talking about free speech, it's a great reminder about what Elon Musk did in buying Twitter. His purpose behind buying Twitter, he was so appalled at the kowtowing that the old Twitter management did to the Biden administration, is that he and some of his wealthy buddies got together and bought the thing. Imagine you're just sitting around with Larry Ellison and going, "Hey man, can you chip in a few bill?" Yeah, how much does it cost? It's like $44 billion. Let's put some money together. Come on, let's go in on this with me. Trump is in the White House. Things are reversing in this country. Years of Democrat decay then accelerated under Joe Biden, in the miserable 4 years of his presidency it's being reversed, all because, I think, significantly because of that decision. Now, remember when it happened, when Musk bought X, and the Democrats realized that the jig was up. They realized that their efforts to control misinformation, disinformation was gone, was kaput. They freaked out. It was actually then, not subsequently during the campaign, when Musk, after the assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania, comes out in support for Trump. It was actually before that, with Twitter, that the left began to have qualms about Elon Musk. Remember all the criticism that came out, all the lies, all the doomsday predictions that Twitter was going to fail. All that has proven to be completely untrue. And it was I here on the What's Right show. Well, that was me. It was me. Got to say this grammatically correctly. It was, I said it here. I said he was going to succeed. Don't bet against Elon Musk. Well, here we are. So now the Democrats have come out full force for freedom of speech. What the Democrats really mean about freedom of speech is they want the freedom to propagandize. That's the takeaway here. They want the freedom to lie with impunity and to lie unchecked. This is why they don't want actual discourse. This is why the guy out there speaking to young people and changing their minds, they shot. This is why they wanted to create literally a department of misinformation led by that insufferable creature, Nina Jankowicz. They were full on, Big Brother, Orwellian, agency that was going to monitor and determine for us what is and isn't true. And it was so out there, by the way, that even the Biden people, the auto pen freaked out and was like, no, I'm not going to do this. It's so bad. Now, the subject of truth matters because there are facts that are objectively true. Now, you're allowed to lie. The First Amendment allows you to lie. There's no question about that. There are certain, I'm not going to get hung up on Kimmel here, certain FCC rules where, we got into this previously. So there's a colorable argument for why in public broadcasting you can't just get away with anything that you want. But when it comes to this very important conversation that we're having as a country about violence, about political violence, it's important. The facts are so critical. And let me give you a couple of examples here. I was talking about this with producer Robbie here before the show as we were doing prep. Some examples here about how the data gets cooked. So I think I mentioned the piece in The Economist. This came out, by the way, The Economist piece came out 3 days ago. And they put this, they wrote, the killing of Charlie Kirk is part of a grim pattern of political violence in America. This is what the data shows. And what the data shows is, there's black. I said it was blue. I misspoke earlier. Black is left. Gray, light gray is other. Dark gray is Islamist. And red is right. Now, they deliberately did this. The black and the gray and the dark gray all kind of look the same. They're not that much. And then the right-wing violence is just huge. Now let's get at this. Because I think I mentioned earlier, Jack Posobiec wrote that if you look at it, it's literally an Antifa professor who is the source on this Economist piece. So that's hilarious in and of itself. But then what we got to realize is what are they counting? Remember all the times we spoke about during the Biden years about the FBI crime stats, how they were underreporting Islamic terror attacks, Islamic motivated attacks, that they wouldn't call the Pulse nightclub shooting an Islamic attack, even though the guy literally said why he attacked the gay club. And it was, newsflash, because it was a target for someone who happened to be an Islamist. So I'm saying, listen, I'm pointing, like, here's an example. Back in 2006, 4 members of the white supremacist Aryan Brotherhood took a guy, a 46-year-old Jack Kristen, to a remote location, demanded to know what he told the police. They were interested in what he had possibly revealed to the police in an investigation of their meth operation. Now, this was a standard criminal enterprise. The suspected police informant was shot and killed. This is one of many incidents that were labeled right-wing. It goes in the right-wing column. Now, if somebody tells you right-wing political violence, are you thinking about the Aryan Brotherhood murdering a police informant over a drug deal? Like, I don't. When I think of political violence and how it might affect me, my children, my family, my friends, I'm thinking of Charlie Kirk. I'm not thinking about a drug deal gone bad. That's probably not going to affect me. 2008, Cynthia Lynch, 43, filed an online application to join an Oklahoma branch of the Ku Klux Klan. I didn't know, Robbie, that they took online applications. Well, there we have it. According to police, Lynch either tried to back out or got into an argument with the Klansmen during her initiation ceremony. She was shot to death and mutilated. So, I'm not laughing. I'm just saying the story is almost crazy that would be labeled right-wing political violence. That's not what... Okay, you sign up for... I'm sorry. If you sign up to join the Ku Klux Klan, I don't have a lot of sympathy for you. I mean, those are bad people. They may hurt you. They're violent people. So she joins the Klan. She gets into an argument during her initiation. They kill her. They mutilate her body. But that's not right-wing political violence. The examples go on and on. The Parkland shooting in 2018 has been labeled right-wing because they claimed wrongly early on that the shooter had trained with white nationalists. It's not true. I think the shooter was Hispanic, by the way. He was just an oddball nutso kid. Neither the Nashville trans shooting or the Minneapolis trans shooting that just happened have been labeled left-wing violence. They get labeled unclear motive. And yet both of those shootings clearly were motivated by political hate for the other side. And I think you'll agree with me that definitions matter, words matter, and that you agree that defining political violence being violence perpetrated by one side against the other. Okay, this is, that's not like Vince Foster, getting offed by Hillary Clinton. Okay, that's not left-wing political violence. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT.
The Salmon Ash team, they wanted me to have the best care. They had my interests at heart. I have an enormous amount of gratitude. I cannot say enough thank you.
Even the Luigi Mangione assassination of the healthcare CEO does not count as political violence. The same people, this is why the statistics on right-wing and left-wing violence are so nonsensical. They pretend that the motive for that killing is unknown. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Greetings, friends. Welcome to the program. Sam at what'srightshow.com is my email. Sorry, just gathering myself here. Yeah, the breaks. I get the break, and I'm just preparing the next segment. And folks, just to tell you, we begin talking with Robbie, dissecting things that happen, things that we should still talk about. And then before I know it, it's time to get back on air. I know many of you are waiting through the break with bated breath, but for me over here, I'm just trying to catch my breath and get to everything. Make sure I do not miss a word. By the way, I'm embarrassed, Robbie. I am actually embarrassed. Yesterday, we got an email. I got an email about something that was already in my notes. It was already in my notes. And I had a listener remind me there was a suicide hanging at a university in the South. We talked about this yesterday, and we've got all the people out there up in arms, including Ben Crump, because the gentleman, they've ruled it a suicide, but the gentleman was black, and so you've got all the civil rights lawyers convening there, and claiming that there is some kind of nefarious plot, that it was a lynching. But apparently there was another hanging that same day. So I don't have I should have had, here we go. Hold on. I got pulling it up here. That's just, nope. Oh yeah, Daniel, thank you. You sent this to me. Yeah, there was one white male that was found hanging and one black male. And I had this, Daniel, I swear I had this in my notes and I just didn't get to it. And this is what happens when I don't properly gather my thoughts. So you are correct. And occasionally it'll happen. I will get an email from one of you reminding me just how poorly I've done my job. So that's good. I need the oversight. So here we go. So we're talking about the political violence. Okay. Waukesha. What about Waukesha? There's a guy who intentionally drove into a Christmas parade. He talked about it. He said, I'm going to get the Christians. It was never labeled as political violence. And we've had enough. The Washington Post and the Cato Institute are the leading culprits of this bad methodology. The Washington Post, all of their graphics are built on the ADL. The ADL is a group that has long been, they haven't been particularly wedded to truth and to reality. And the CSIS, the Center for Strategic International Studies, both of these organizations have a strong left-wing bias. There's no question about it. And they aren't measuring real political violence. They're measuring mostly terrorism and extremist murders. They move many instances of street violence, protests, and riots, or they get removed. So if you've got a BLM riot or an Antifa riot, none of that ever gets listed. Now, why is that relevant? Well, because, again, do conservatives riot? Did we, on the heels of losing Charlie Kirk in such a violent and tragic way, did we go to the streets and begin burning down businesses? No, we didn't. That's something that the left does. So that's it. By the way, they don't count state actors. So Waco, for example, doesn't count. That's interesting too. But the attacks plot, it's a single protest episode can compress hundreds of crimes into one. So if you look at Minneapolis, St. Paul in 2020, this is the riots, horrendous riots that the First Lady of Minnesota said how she opened the windows to smell the burning air, to smell justice wafting into the governor's mansion. That's the one. That had 164 arsons, 1,500 damaged sites, $500 million in losses. But there's only a handful of incidents in the terror data set. And then actually none if there's no lethal intent. Now, I would argue that setting alight 164 structures has lethal intent. We all saw the tapes playing during the Summer of George. Those people were out for blood, and people did die. But it all got glossed over by the leftists that are intent on controlling the media. Now, Cato Institute has similar stuff. Not going to get into all these details, but you get the point. The point here is that they have very carefully crafted a narrative that excludes nearly all acts of left-wing political violence and then exaggerates so-called right-wing violence, including among them even quite ordinary violent crimes. Now, I'm not saying, you'll never hear me on this program minimizing any criminal activity. That's not my point. I think crime statistics overall being minimized actually by the left. The only criminal statistics that the left gets excited about historically are ones that they can pin on conservatives to build this nonsense narrative. And so, against this backdrop, the point is, I'm glad that Trump is fighting back. And of course, he's going to get some arrows and he's going to get some grief. And of course, they're going to play this, all the same people that love deplatforming and love canceling people and love removing opposing viewpoints are now going to suddenly call themselves, like that one Democratic strategist, free speech absolutists. But that's the price to pay for going bare knuckle boxing with a bunch of political thugs. This is a knockout, drag-out fight, and it's not for the faint of heart. And by the way, Trump is proving himself to be just the warrior for the occasion. But make no mistake about it, this is a very, very important battle. Whoever writes the definitive books on this, who gets to solidify a narrative, he's the victor. And we've been we're in a free speech. Oh my God, well, they can lie. It's their right. They can do it. They can do whatever they want. Well, it goes on and on and on. And eventually, every person in the country pretty much believes the lies that they've been fed. That's dangerous. So we have to fight back. That's exactly what's happening. All right, stay tuned. By the way, Obama keeps popping up. Obama. God, you'd think he'd have some shame. My goodness. More on that when we come back. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. I'm frequently astounded by the lack of shame among some leaders of the Democratic Party. And I submit as Exhibit A in my long list of shameful actors, former President Barack Obama. Sam Mirejovsky here behind the What's Right microphone. Friends, Obama is back. Back again? Tell a friend. On Tuesday, he sat down and was asked about Trump's response to the tragic assassination of Charlie Kirk. And Obama, at the Jefferson Educational Society, said this. And I saw this when this first came out. I laughed out loud.
When I was president, in the aftermath of tragedies, as president of the United States, my response was not, who may have influenced this troubled young man to engage in that kind of violence, and now let me go after my political opponents and use that.
Go after? He didn't go after his political opponents? What? I want to know what grade A crack pipe Obama is smoking. Remember when the IRS had to come out and apologize for the extra scrutiny? That's what they called it back in the day. The extra scrutiny the Tea Party and patriot organizations were given, along with noted conservatives. This was a thing. This actually happened. And it's one of many examples of Obama being a deeply political actor and obviously using the power of his administration to pursue and to punish his political opponents. The Tea Party movement, and I know this goes back, it's over 10 years ago. So it goes back to, it goes back, this is like the foundations, the early foundations of MAGA. The Tea Party didn't have the benefit of Trump. This is part of me. Sometimes, if I may digress, I get a little bit concerned of where MAGA goes when Trump is off the political scene. I don't know. It's a big unknown question. It's actually the biggest concern that we ought to consume ourselves with politically as Republicans. But in any event, Obama's got the audacity now to come back and talk about this. Keep complaining. Anyway, Lois Lerner, remember her? She was the head of the IRS. They had to eat crow after it was found that absolutely people in the agency went after, and that they tried to say that they did it all on their own, but it wasn't true. Mitch McConnell had to release a statement called the Obama administration using thuggish practices. Thuggish practices. That was Mitch McConnell before he got Trump derangement syndrome. Okay. So why am I bringing up Obama? Well, because I'm telling you, I think there's something afoot right now. I think that the Democrats are realizing that the jig is up. I think they're realizing, honest to goodness, I think they're starting to fret about where they go from here. And they've awoken in conservatives a certain amount of what can we call it? IDAGF? IDGAF. There we go. I got my acronym all wrong. I don't give a beep. Did you see, for example, did you see the Gutfeld takedown of Jessica Tarloff? That was an epic moment. Greg Gutfeld, actually very easygoing guy. If you ever met Greg, he's super easygoing guy, absolutely just the kindest human. And there's always been a Dem on that panel. There's always been a lib. It's been Jessica Tarloff. She's terrible, honest to goodness, low IQ person, not a lot of, voltage going on in between her ears. But Greg Gutfeld, just over Charlie Kirk, absolutely slammed her to the ground. And it was this moment. I don't have the audio. It was a few days back, but I'm bringing it up because I'm noticing a trend even among. I'm not saying Greg Gutfeld's moderate. Okay, that's not my point. But he's more mainstream, and people are just coming out and we're done. The same way that Scott Jennings is done. The same way that I've been done for a while, but I'm done. You hear it across the spectrum. And then you even see Democrats who are done with Democrats. They're so appalled by this party. And against this backdrop, we have noises that AOC is going to be running for president. We know that the Democratic Party is moving in the direction of socialism. We know they're catering to and doubling down on big blue cities, on the elites that they cater to exclusively. We know that one of the great lies of the Democratic Party is that they're for the little guy. Every bit of policy that the Democratic Party has led with for the past 30 years or so has been tremendously destructive to people starting out in this economy, to middle-class workers in this country. The Democrats are in it for themselves. So you've got these layers of things happening all at the same time. And Obama's still playing the same playbook. These Democrats, Chuck Schumer's still playing the same. It's the same. They just, whatever the moment is, whatever the issue, whatever the soundbite news cycle before them, if Trump goes up, they're going to go down. If Trump says it's daytime, they're going to insist it's night. They're still being completely reactive. And they also are getting caught in their lies. And they also, at the same time, are pivoting far left. Now, what do I make of this? What do I think? Well, I think it's a perfect storm for a perfect conditions for a death spiral of the Democratic Party. I don't think that this goes particularly well. And I think when we have some time passes, and I really think this is going to happen. I think when we look back at last week, we look back at Wednesday, and we think back to the horrific day Charlie Kirk was assassinated, I think we're going to realize that from that moment forward, the entire situation on the ground changed, right? And I think the same way that before last week the Democrats were coming out of hiding and declaring themselves socialists. And I've said here repeatedly that I think it's a good thing. They've finally taken the mask off. They're declaring themselves to be who they really are. They're embracing the legitimate branding of what the Democratic Party is: radical left-wing socialists, basically communist incarnate. These nihilists, these accelerationists that want to seek destruction and want to rip any amount of meaning from life, from our culture, from our country, of our patriotism, our values. This is now, we know, they've said it, they're coming out with it. And it's funny, it's almost hilarious to watch Obama kind of dance around it and try to play the elder statesman of the party, and nobody even cares. They don't care at all. Obama speaks, we're just here to make fun of it. And I don't even get me started. Bill Clinton, who? Right? Remember when people cared what Bill Clinton had to say? That's another point. Hillary, you think anybody? Hillary just emerged from the dustbin. She does not look good. Well, I'm just saying, she's aged, you know. She kept it all together. She really did for 2016, and then it's downhill. But she's repeating the same nonsense about Trump and the free speech and this and that. These people would burn the First Amendment to the ground. So anyway, they're all so irrelevant. And the Dems that are new and fresh and exciting, that people are following and getting excited for, are all crazy. It's fascinating. What a timeline. So fear not. I keep saying this. There's a lot more to be optimistic for and about. I sense a cultural renewal happening in our country. I sense people waking up. And I love to see that the Democrats are really coming out and showing themselves and revealing their true selves politically to the American public. Sam Mirejovsky here, News Talk 840 KXNT. Hi, welcome back. Sam Mirejovsky here, Nevada's favorite recovering Californian. Happy Friday. We are on like Donkey Kong here on the program. By the way, have to mention, and I've gotten a few calls from you, and I appreciate this so much. Do not, if you get injured, if you or a loved one has had something happen to them, and it could be an elder abuse situation, nursing home cases are egregious. Some stuff that is going on, particularly in Nevada and California, that we're seeing are just awful. Obviously, car accident, anything where you get hurt. Don't go at it alone. Get some advice. Get legal advice. And don't postpone it. Don't wait. Please, please, please do not wait. Sam and Ash Injury Law, 702-820-1234, 702-820-1234. Every consultation is always free. No money out of pocket. You don't get charged a bunch of money. It's a percentage deal at the end of the case if you win. That's how it works. Sam and Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right. Now, I'm seeing, folks, a lot of stuff being said here by the left, trying to humanize Charlie Kirk's assassin. Some pretty sick stuff. Now, we all remember the journalist who, in the days after the assassination, who had tried to, this is Matt Gutman over at ABC News. This is Tuesday. We got remember when the text messages came out? Text messages come out and it's, and he's being loving, the alleged assassin, was loving with his trans furry roommate. And Gutman just goes, boy, this is so sweet.
We have seen an alleged murder with such specific text messages about the alleged murder weapon, where it was hidden, how it was placed, what was on it, but also it was very touching in a way that I think many of us didn't expect. A very intimate portrait into this relationship between the suspect's roommate and the suspect himself, with him repeatedly calling his roommate, who is transitioning, calling him my love, and I want to protect you, my love. So it was this duality of someone who the attorney said not only jeopardized the life of Charlie Kirk and the crowd, but was doing it in front of children, which is one of the aggravating circumstances of this case. And on the other hand, he was, speaking so lovingly about his partner. So a very interesting and, as Pierre said, riveting press conference, David.
I have heard people say that Adolf Hitler was lovely to his dog Blondie. If you know this, he had these German shepherds. I remember one of them, I believe, was named Blondie. Now, it's kind of bad at the end when, Hitler's in the bunker and the Russians, Americans are coming. And so I think Blondie got shot in the head. So the romance didn't really work out. I'm not saying, look, what the hell is this? What is this? This guy admitted to putting a giant bullet through the neck of a father, basically blew a chunk out of his. It's so heinous what happened. In front of his kids. Oh, he's speaking lovingly to his little gay lover, the trans. Shut up. A girl witnessed her father be murdered violently before her very eyes. You want some sympathy? You want some human sympathy? You want to tell the human side of the story? That's what you talk about. These people make me sick. Tuesday on CNN on Abby Phillip. It's a miserable show. Only good when you've got Scott Jennings on there. Anyway, Montel Williams. Remember Montel Williams, daytime talk show guy? Said that the killer was motivated emotionally. This is what the Democrats are doing now. They're trying to rehabilitate this guy. Bad dude. Legitimately a bad person. Top candidate for a capital punishment. But no, if you ask the Democrats, we've got to be sympathetic.
But here, I think he also, I don't believe he was motivated politically. I think this was motivated emotionally. I think this was a emotionally stunted person who literally, when I say it this way, just hear me, tried to defend his significant other, not trying to defend some ideology.
Although I do think there's clearly an ideological difference. That's why I played about what they said about the family. I mean, the ideological difference that he was reacting to wasn't just Charlie Kirk. It was also maybe his dad. I mean, his father was, according to him, MAGA. So that conflict was there, clearly.
So, I see. If somebody is saying things publicly that I perceive is hurtful to my love, my transsexual, furry friend, that explains why I put a bullet in that person? I'll tell you if you don't believe me on the statistics, or let me put it this way. If you go, well, Sam, I don't know, maybe the statistics, maybe there is more right-wing violence. I trust the FBI. I trust the Washington Post. It's fine. What about Melissa Hortman? What about Gabby Gifford? Now, Gabby Gifford, I think if I remember right, that guy was just a nut, but it may have had political motivation. But setting that aside, who on the right, who on Fox News, on OAN, on Real America's Voice, who was saying, oh, well, maybe we just don't understand this. Well, I mean, it kind of makes sense. I mean, it's like, yeah, Gabby Gifford voted for all sorts of things. I mean, well, but no, nobody ever said this. No conservative went on air and gushed about the killer or well, it's just they were protecting their family and their life and their wife. And no, I know that the Democrats' narrative on political violence is bull crap because of their reactions. I know how our side reacts. I'm a much more than I probably should for my own mental health. I am a consumer of the news. I have to be for the purposes of doing this program with some degree of competence every day. So I'm watching the news and I'm reading the news and I'm following the news all the time. And I would tell you, look, and occasionally we do have wackadoodle people on our side who say weird things, and even they don't do half of the weird stuff that the left is doing on major news networks. How is Montel Williams how is this not being played everywhere all the time? Well, he was just protecting the love of his life. I see it as an emotional act. It's not a political act. This is how you know they're losing. This is how you know that they've lost the plot. Now, what I'll say, kind of a final button on this, we have to hold the left accountable for their lies, for the incitement, for their endless propaganda, their mass hypnosis that they're inflicting on so many Americans. I gave some remarks today at work at my office, my first opportunity to address the entire firm, and I mentioned Charlie Kirk. And I basically, I part of my remarks to the office is don't just believe everything somebody tells you. Do your own research. Don't just accept somebody's characterization of something. Find out for yourselves. You might be surprised. I think more and more people are finding out, and the more they find out, the worse the Democratic Party will do politically. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talking 40 KXN.